Hi everyone. In this video we're looking at chapter 7, which is about networking. Now, back in the dark ages when I first got started working with computers, and yes, I do remember some that looked like that, although my very first desktop PC was a little bit better looking than that, just a little bit beyond there. Now, my point in talking about these old computers is that we were really excited about them just in and for themselves because they did math really quickly. If you had one that had word processing, then that was so much better than having to type your documents. It was just really, really exciting. Now, if I were to put you in a room full of computers like this, you would probably wonder what the heck was going on. You would think of them just as big, useless paperweights because for people now, a computer is pretty much useless unless it's connected to the internet. Okay? We like our connectivity. We like to be able to communicate with people. We like to get information. We like all of these things. So we need to be networked. But what exactly is a network? Well, anytime you connect devices, you have a network. If you've got a smartphone and you plug some earbuds into it, that's networked. That's a wired network. If you've got AirPods, so wireless, you now have a wireless network. Now, that's a very, very simple network indeed, but the idea remains. When you connect devices, you have a network. Now, it may be that one of those devices can do things on its own, and one of them can't unless it's hooked into the network. It's still a legitimate network. Okay? Um, at home, you probably have a network of devices. Now, not everybody has a sophisticated digital home network where you've got, your wired in service and then your Wi-Fi network, and you've got the house itself wired in, and the refrigerator is set to tell you when you run out of stuff and automatically add it to your shopping list. But our homes are getting fairly sophisticated as far as networks are concerned. So there's a lot of devices that you might have hooked into your home network. At the very least, you probably have an internet service provider of some sort that you hook into to get your internet. It's possible that you also get your TV streaming services through that internet service provider. And all of these can combine the possibility of both a wired and wireless network. Um, Here's an example of a whole bunch of devices that are all hooked in together. Each of these devices is a node on a network. Now, some of them are smart nodes, some of them are not smart nodes. A smart node would have processing power of its own. A dumb node, well, a not smart node, would be dependent on the processing power of other devices. Like a printer is an end device with little or no processing power of its own. Very few of them process on their own. They simply accept messages sent to them and they spew those messages out via the print mechanism. Um, a set of speakers attached into a network simply plays whatever information is sent to it. Um, all of these nodes are connected into the network, and a node is simply a device hooked into a network. It can be anything. Depending on how your network is organized, you probably have at some point a switch or a collection of switches. And a switch is just a device that you can plug a bunch of other devices into, and it will manage the traffic on those devices. If you have a wired network, then it's probably hooked up via Ethernet cable because Ethernet is the most common protocol for wired networks to use. There are a couple of different names for this. I believe Cat6 is one. There are a few others. But if you call it Ethernet cable, 99.9% of the people who know anything about networking are going to know what you're talking about. Now, Ethernet cable itself has twisted pair wires inside of it. It's the most common because it's the cheapest. The wires are twisted around themselves, and that provides a certain protection against interference from outside electrical signals and things like that. It's not the only wired media that you can use in and around networks. Some others would include coaxial cable. In the old days of cable TV, this was the only thing. And you may still have coaxial cable connecting you to your internet service provider and or TV streaming provider. Coaxial cable has a single copper wire with insulation and copper mesh, and outside insulation. It's big fat cable, but it's only got actually just the one wire in it. However, that wire has the capability of sending a lot more information across it than the individual wires in the twisted pair grouping. There's also, and if you live in a newer neighborhood, you may have this, fiber optic. Now, we tend to kind of say fiber optic cable, but it's not cable. I mean, you could think of it as cable, but fiber optics are tiny little filaments of glass or plastic that light travels along. And because they work via light pulses rather than electrical signals, they work very differently. Fiber optic is not subject to electrical interference from any other type of media. It does have the handicap that you can only send signals in one direction. So you always need at least a pair. But fiber optic usually comes bundled in dozens, if not hundreds, of filaments in one group, as you see in this illustration here. Okay. Now, fiber optic is very expensive, and because of that, we only see it going into new construction. It's very seldom done as an infrastructure upgrade. You know, so if you live in an older neighborhood that's already been wired for coaxial cable, it's unlikely that you're ever going to see fiber optic there unless you want to pay the money to have it put in. And it's not just the money to have it put from the street to your house, it's the money to have it put from wherever the nearest switching station is to your street as well. And nobody wants to spend that. You want your service provider to spend that, and they're not going to do that unless it's a new installation. So you're kind of stuck that way at any rate. Now, I talked about the switches. In a wired network, you've got the switches, and the switches act as a traffic signal within your network. They keep track of all the different signals going between your different devices, and they make sure that those signals don't get run into each other and crash, and that they all get to where they're going to. That's within your network. And we're talking about your network at home. But in order to have the connectivity that you want, you can't just have your own home network. I mean, it's great that you can send things to your computer that or your printer, you know, from your computer to your printer. Maybe you can even send things from your smartphone to your printer. You know, you can see the thing on your Ring doorbell from your phone. But what you want is connection to the internet. And that's a separate network. Okay? That requires you to connect your network to your internet service provider's network, which then connects you to the internet. And that requires a router. Routers connect separate networks together. Okay? So you probably have a router. Now that router may also act as a switch for your internal network devices. There are lots of these physical devices that do many jobs, but you're going to need a router to connect to your ISP, which connects you to the internet as a whole. And by the way, the internet is just a giant network of networks. So now that we're connected to the internet, we've got all kinds of things going on. So in this particular illustration, we see a DSL modem. Now, DSL is a service that you can use if you live within a certain distance from a switching station. It's only viable within, I think, about 3 miles. If not, you probably have cable, or if you're lucky, you have fiber optic. But that connects you to your internet service provider, which connects you to the internet. Okay? You may have a router that attaches to your other devices, and that gives you wireless. And so you may be able to use your smartphones, your laptops, your game consoles, whatever it is within your home. All of this, is connecting all of your devices together. But the ultimate is that connection to the internet, which gives us everything that we want there. Oh, there's an example of one of those devices that does a whole lot of things. So now we're connected to the world at large. What exactly does that mean? Well, let's look at the different sizes of networks that we're talking about here. Okay. The smallest possible network would be a personal area network. That would be you, your smartphone, and your AirPods or whatever it is they call them, earbuds, that's your network. Or if you've got a smartwatch that's connected up to your smartphone, that's your personal area network. If you are somebody that travels around a bit for business, like you're, a salesman that does sales calls or something like that, you might actually have a printer or a scanner that you keep in your briefcase or in your car that you use in order to, be able to work with those things on the fly. Those could be part of your personal area network. The home network, or HAN. First one was a PAN, personal area network. Now we're talking about HAN, home area network. That's got all the things in your home, your TV, your laptops, your refrigerator, or even your washer and dryer, or maybe your, your doorbell, your home thermostat system, your burglar alarms, maybe, hooked into all that. That's your home area network. The next step up would be a local or limited area network, which we can call a LAN. Now, these can be fairly sizable. The network that supports City College is a local area or limited area network because it's limited to the campus and all of the buildings on campus, and then it connects up to internet services in order to connect people within that local area network to outside networks. There's a next step up called a MAN, or Metropolitan Area Network, sometimes termed Municipal Area Network, but still MAN. These are sometimes offered in small municipal areas where they simply want to provide internet service for everybody. That's a really nice thing. Your tax dollars at work. Obviously the citizens of that municipal area would vote to pay taxes to provide that service for everybody. It could also refer to the network of metropolitan services. So in, say, the city of Fresno, all of our city services would be hooked in. The police, the fire department, the county courthouse, the jail, the city council, all of the government offices, all of that would be hooked into the metropolitan area network in order to be able to share resources and be able to communicate faster with other areas of the metropolitan services that we might need to communicate with. Okay. The next step up is a WAN, a wide area network. This can cover a lot of geographical territory. And of course, the internet itself is the WANiest of WANs. It covers everything because anything that is ultimately connected up to the World Wide Web is part of the internet. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody can get at your personal stuff. Hopefully, you've got it all secured with a firewall. But if you are connected up into services that give you access to things that are public on the World Wide Web, then you are part of the WAN, the WANiest of WANs. So those are our basic sizes of networks that you want to think about. We've got the PAN, the HAN, the LAN, the MAN, and the WAN. Now, the more sizable and the more complicated these networks get, the more equipment they need to support it, and the more expensive it gets to purchase and maintain that equipment. And the more we worry about our access to those networks and what kind of speed we're getting. Okay? So we want the most speed as possible because we don't want to sit around and have to twiddle our thumbs while we wait for the information we've asked for. So we're concerned with what kind of connection we have to these services. Do we have a narrowband service, voice band? That would mean like dial up. Or do we have broadband? Everybody wants broadband because that means you get more information per second than you do on voice band. And I distinctly remember the days of dial up, and they were exciting at the time because, we didn't know that there was anything better coming down the pike. And, it was so excited to be connected at all. But there was a lot of sitting around waiting for stuff to download. But again, that was the best that we had, and it was pretty wonderful for the time. So, the age-old question. Wired versus wireless. Which one is better? And the answer, I think, is neither. They both have good points and not so great points. Okay? Wired is faster than wireless. Wired is more secure than wireless. But wired requires you to be in one place so that you can plug in. Wireless gives you the mobility that people want, the ability to get that information, get that connectivity wherever you happen to be. And a lot of people are perfectly willing to sacrifice a little speed and a little security in order to have that connectivity on the go. But what are you really sacrificing when you look at wireless network security? Okay. Now, let's talk about your home wireless network. Now, if you've got connection to an internet service provider and you're using a router to create a wireless network, please tell me that you're securing it, because so many people don't bother to. They say, oh, what the heck? If a few people want to glom onto my Wi-Fi, what do I care? Well, you should care. You should care a lot. Because number one, if somebody is glomming on to your Wi-Fi, and we call that, whoops, went too far, piggybacking. Not only are they stealing your bandwidth, but you could be liable for anything that they do while they are on your Wi-Fi. Okay? Do you want to go to jail for the porn that they downloaded? Do you want to get in trouble for the fraud that they perpetrated? Okay? Plus the fact that if they're on your Wi-Fi, that means that your own stuff is that much less secure. And it's so easy to secure your wireless network. All you have to do is turn it on and create a password. Okay? It's that easy. Okay? And yet about 28% of people who create wireless networks within their home don't bother to do it. Don't be one of those 28%. Okay. Now let's talk about your security out in the world. Public Wi-Fi. Okay. Hopefully it goes without saying that you should never, ever do anything of a secure nature while you're using public Wi-Fi. Don't do your banking. Don't send any messages that you wouldn't want the entire world to be able to read. You simply can't count on them being private. And don't do any purchasing. Do not shop via public Wi-Fi. Okay? Because there are plenty of places where either for free or for very little money, you can acquire the software that is what you need to make your computer able to listen in to all the messages that people who are on public Wi-Fi think are private. And all of a sudden, they're not private. And now they've got all kinds of information about you. And if you're foolish enough to do your banking or your shopping via public Wi-Fi, they've now got your credit card information or your banking information. And you don't want them to have that because you do not want to be a victim of identity theft or fraudulent banking activity. There's too much out there, um, just in phishing emails, hoping somebody will take the hook. Don't leave yourself open for something that it's so easy to protect yourself from just by waiting till you get home and you're on your own secure network to do things that require a secure connection. Okay? Now, I'm sure the book has a lot more to say about networks and networking, so I encourage you to read what it has to offer and find those answers for the quiz. So I will see you in the next chapter. Garamahagat agus Shukhanat.